Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to be underway. I guess this is day 3 here, and had a fun-filled day 1 on campus, and was able to hop around to various programs and pop into practice and visit with our staff. And day 1, as I've said to many folks, was a day that I've been waiting for some time, and so was anxious to get started. And just the relocation to Nashville has just been terrific. My wife Jessica and I are thrilled to be in Nashville, thrilled to be part of the Commodore community, and so excited to get started. And so I appreciate all of you being here, and look forward to taking your questions, but excited to be here and really looking forward to getting going here.
Malcolm, Adam Sparks, Tennessean. You're used to watching basketball games without a rooting interest. You're looking at the product, not the team. What do you think today will be like having a team to root for?
Looking forward to it. I was talking with my wife Jessica, about that, and you're absolutely right. That's a difference, and so I've been looking forward to rooting for a team for some time, and so that's another item we can add in the plus column starting today, which is great. So we think that's going to be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to that experience.
Malcolm, I'm sure you had about a month and a half between the time you were hired and the time you started work. I'm sure you didn't just take the time off and not think about it. What were the things that you thought about? What were the things you talked about in that space in between? Yeah,
first I had a lot of obligations that I was wrapping up on the NBA side, so I was not off on the beach by any stretch. The nature of my role at the NBA is one that, we were in season, and there are not a lot of natural hard stops, and, given some current obligations that we had within that business. And so, wanted to fulfill some obligations for our commissioner and our owners and our teams and partners there through roughly mid-January. And so there was a bit of, that transition, relocating to Nashville, starting to have some early conversations, both within the department and trying to start to build and create relationships with our coaches and the leadership here at Vanderbilt University. And certainly, was overwhelmed by the feedback and response, and had a lot of folks reach out, and many of whom I was able to connect with, and others, are certainly getting those calendarized as well. And so it's been a fast and furious, month and a half, 2 months or so for sure, in terms of wrapping up some of my obligations on the NBA, getting ready for the relocation from New York City to here to Nashville, and now in earnest, the ramp up and official transition to Vanderbilt. And so that transition certainly moved in a lot of different directions for sure. All the more reason, so anxious for day 1 on Friday to get started with a full and dedicated focus to Vanderbilt University and the Commodore family.
What's Chris Harris at News 4 here at NBC in Nashville? What's your process for kind of implementing some of your ideas that you may have to bring to the table to begin with?
Yeah, I've said this before. I'm someone who I've never gone into any new situation with all the answers to the test, and I'm going to do a bit of a listening tour and try to talk to as many people as I can, within the athletic department and with our student athletes and our coaches and our fan base and partners and well beyond. Certainly, I come to this role with some initial ideas that I will test in those conversations, and good ideas can come from a lot of places, and so I'm looking forward to engaging in that conversation. I think showing up and being present and engaging is particularly important at this early stage, for me, in terms of my connection to Vanderbilt and the Commodore family and this fan base and our group of student athletes and coaches, and that's a connection point that's very important, for me as we look to craft a plan going forward. But the culmination of kind of that listening tour, if you will, we'll be working with Chancellor Zepos on a strategic plan as it relates to Vanderbilt athletics, and that will include a full review of our student athlete experience and the resources and investments that we need to add and wrap around that experience, and that will include a review of our facilities, and ultimately, Vanderbilt athletics will be featured as part of the upcoming capital campaign as well, of which our student athlete experience, including our facilities, will benefit from.
Malcolm, Joe Rexler from the Tennessean. What have you learned in the first couple days, or what stands out about what you've learned in some of the conversations the first couple days on the job?
I just think there's tremendous opportunity. I certainly felt that going in, and in speaking, with sidewalk fans and, members of the team and, and many others. It's just validating that I think there's been a high level of achievement and great accomplishments to date, but I'd like to say that, let's find out what our ceiling is. And I think that, I've talked about this before in, some of the earlier media, that I'm very proud of the Vanderbilt way, and I think there's great opportunity there. And I think there are so many within the Commodore family who also feel like there's great opportunity, and that's one of the reasons why I, took this particular job. I've admired this university from afar for a very long time, and the Vanderbilt way is something, is a very compelling proposition to me in terms of, being able to tell a student athlete you can have the opportunity to compete at the highest level, but also have an opportunity to get an education that's second to none. And, that was a very compelling proposition for me. But I think overall, with all the achievement and accomplishments that we've had to date, I think there's great upside. I think the foundation is very strong, but it's going to take some work. I didn't take this job because it's easy, and there's a lot of open questions out there that I think need answers. And so I've always been one to enjoy blank sheet of paper opportunities and growth opportunities, and that's certainly what I feel like we have here.
Emily Proud, Mr. the ABC affiliate here. You talk about opportunity, you look down at your mic flag and it says SEC. Just how big an opportunity is it to be a part of the SEC, not just financially, but just visibly with the ESPN tag and everything like that? Just how exciting is that opportunity?
It's exciting, and it's part of what makes this such a compelling opportunity. The SEC in its own right, I think it speaks for itself. A leadership conference for sure, and there's some practical realities that come with that. And I know one of the big open questions is football, and there's some part of being in this conference. There's some competitive practical realities and table stakes, if you will, for playing the SEC and the institution of football in the South and well beyond. And but there's no doubt about it that the notion of being associated and part of such a fine university, a leadership brand in its own right, Vanderbilt University, paired with the leadership conference in the SEC, once again made this a very compelling opportunity for me. Yes, sir.
Tom Wood from the Ledger. So you've got a strong academic background and a strong sports business background. Talk a little bit about how those two merged, and did you always want to come back to the collegiate level and be an athletics director?
Yeah, the academic piece of it has been, always been very important to me, and that goes back, in many respects to my mother. She desegregated the University of South Carolina, and so this is someone who demonstrated great courage and literally had to fight for education, and so was such a strong model of leadership and courage for me, and instilling in me the value of an education and the opportunity that an education creates for someone, to, like I said, literally have to fight for education. And so the academic piece and the role of education was always important to me. And so when I was taking a look at this opportunity, the academic reputation here at Vanderbilt University, that was consideration number one, without question. And so that's always been something that's been, very important for me to begin with. It was an important piece of the consideration set that brought me here. I have been in this sports business and I've been fortunate to have worked really throughout all corners of this business, from facilities to media, marketing partners, and certainly in my prior role with the NBA, with players, officiating, our team ownership construct and all of that. And so, but I really grew up in the consulting business. And so I grew up, going in and out of brands across different categories, properties across different sports, trying to solve C-suite problems and create opportunities. That's really where I grew up in this business ultimately, and so I think that will serve me well in terms of bringing a bit of an agency mindset to this role, as well in terms of identifying our challenges, but also trying to identify solutions and how we can create opportunities to move us forward.
Malcolm, how long, in general terms, how long do you think a coach should get to prove him or herself? What's the clock on, a coaching tenure when you need to see something?
Yeah, I think it's all situational. I don't think I'm going to give a flat timeline. Certainly there's history, and I think context matters. In terms of a coach coming into a very strong situation with a strong base of talent and the resources that they need, that's very different than the alternative. And so all the more reason I think it's very difficult to give kind of a generic time frame. But I think context matters. I think situation matters. And so I don't think there's one formula or one template, if you will, that would apply for each situation.
Malcolm, Chris Lee from Vandy Sports. Obviously, with your basketball background and this school having sent guys to the NBA, is there a particular place where you think you can really be of use to advising kids who go here, helping the coaching staff? Is there really targeting a lot of high 4 and 5-star kids?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I have that background, for sure, and if and where that's helpful and useful, by all means, I will absolutely, be applying that. The NBA was certainly a wonderful experience for me, and really very entrenched throughout the NBA overall, but the NBA G League and the WNBA as well, and, our coaches and GMs and ownership there, and so if and where there are opportunities where, I can bring those relationships to bear, by all means I will. But, I've worked across a number of other properties as well. For example, the golf business. When I moved over to the NBA, represented almost a quarter of the tour's title sponsors, and our athlete representation side represented some of the top personalities in golf. And so there are a lot of spaces that where it can be beneficial for our program and our coaches and ultimately our student athletes. I'm available and accessible, and certainly we'll look forward to putting that expertise and perspective to bear on their behalf.
You mentioned football earlier, just being in the SEC and the importance. In your opinion, should football drive the bus with this athletics department?
I think it's important. I'm not going to say it's the only bus, but it is a key driver. There's no doubt about it. That's in part, my comment earlier. And so I think, we very clearly have an open question on football. That was an open question well before I arrived. And having said that, I think the Commodore fans, I think that's a question that needs to be acknowledged, and will be one of the first orders of business that I have in terms of understanding any and all existing plans against football, but then again, using that listening tour to perhaps test some ideas and bring some ideas of my own to the table. But there's no doubt about it, that's one of the practical realities of being at a leadership conference of the SEC, but we have other wonderful programs as well, and so this will not be a singular focus on football at the expense of our other programs. However, having said that, like I said, I recognize the importance of football, and so I will, that's one of the early orders of business, that program in particular, but again, I want to understand where our opportunities across the board for all of our programs.
I know you're only on day 3, but you kind of mentioned the importance of football. Do you have a list of priorities, kind of something that you want to tackle first and foremost?
I would say I want to, obviously, like I said, understand where we are from a facility standpoint, but even before we get to the facilities, I want to understand, those other facilities and resources that frankly our student athletes touch on a more daily basis, routine basis, before game day in the football stadium. I think all of that is part of the mix, if you will. I think it would be, incomplete to simply focus on the football stadium without taking a look at the progression before the stadium, and again, those other assets and resources that our student athletes in the football program, but again, across our other programs need, and in the interest of, what do they need to facilitate and accelerate their achievement on the field, and for our student athletes and for our coaches, and of course their off-course development, off-field development as well.
How much will you gauge their opinion, the student athletes, on
Excuse
that?
me?
How much will you gauge their opinion on that specific topic?
Very much. I think it's, I think it's important. I think, they know it firsthand, and I think all will have unique points of view. But I think, frankly, you start with the student athlete, their perspective, and grow out from there.
You talked to David Williams, and if so, what advice did he give you? What questions did you ask him?
We've had routine conversation over the past several weeks, and a lot of that conversation, frankly, at this point has been in the category of, getting me up to speed on some history. He certainly has a lot of institutional knowledge, and over the next couple of weeks, we do have a set schedule on very specific topics that, where I just need his history and perspective and just a level set in terms of where we are, if you will. And, he certainly, he has been a good partner and a great partner to date, and certainly welcoming of a continued dialogue and discussion. And so I look forward to taking advantage of that going forward. But to date, it's really been more in the category of different areas of the business, making sure I have a foundational understanding of where we are. But he's always available. He's been very welcoming, a really strong partner already, and someone that I'll look forward to relying on, because again, he's got a lot of institutional knowledge that can be helpful, and I'm appreciative of that and look forward to taking advantage of that where appropriate.
From a marketing perspective, what kind of opportunity do you see here, in the context of what's happening in the city?
I think there's tremendous opportunity. I think there's great opportunity. There's some challenges too. Marketing, college athletics and what's increasingly a professional sports town. I want to take a look at, the way the broader Vanderbilt University and the student body, connects to Vanderbilt athletics and game attendance. But I think it's a great opportunity, and that certainly will be one of the areas that I for sure will be taking a look at. From a marketing standpoint, from a game presentation, game execution, fan experience standpoint, I think all of those are critical components, in terms of how do we elevate the performance of Vanderbilt athletics overall. I think the marketing and the game day experience and the fan experience are just critical components for that process.
Don Yates, Many.com.
Excuse me?
Don
Don,
Yates,
yes.
Many.com. How can folks in the Vanderbilt community make suggestions to you? Is there any webpage or something they can submit questions and ideas?
Yes, we will be setting up a vehicle to do just that, so I would ask you to stay tuned, but that will be an important area for me to, certainly I'm going to be proactively engaging, but again, ideas come from a lot of different places, but stay tuned. We will have a vehicle for the community to funnel their ideas into me and our department as well.
Did you have any connections or contacts here before you took the job, and what was your perspective on Vanderbilt and its athletics, maybe before you at all got involved with this?
Yeah, I had no specific connection, in a lot of ways, I would tell you, to some degree, I'm surprised that we're having the conversation, and all I mean by that is Vanderbilt is a place I have long admired from afar, and so I was on a wonderful run at the NBA and enjoyed that business, but I always said if I were to get into this space, it had to be a very specific, unique type of opportunity, and it just so happens that Vanderbilt was a place that lined up on a lot of areas that were just important to me, but my list was so short. I was not simply looking to be an AD somewhere. This was a very specific opportunity that was compelling, to me, and so, so there is no formal connection other than a place that I've long admired from afar, reputationally, and its student-athlete model, as I said earlier, a leadership brand in its own right, and participating in a leadership conference, and so there were very specific things about this opportunity in Vanderbilt University that were compelling for me.
Had you been on campus before you got the job? Have you ever attended a basketball game here?
I've not. Today will be my first, and actually, and as far as the city of Nashville, I'd always heard wonderful things about Nashville, and was here last summer, my wife and I, for the first time for some social functions, and really, had always heard so many wonderful things about the city of Nashville, and just really fell in love with it. And who knew at the time, fast forward, that we would be relocating, but again, Vanderbilt and friends of mine who have attended here and generally associated with it, certainly always spoke highly of it, but I had already admired this place from afar for a very long time, and I just think the opportunity against the backdrop of the growth story that's unfolding with the city of Nashville, I think just makes for a wonderful opportunity.
You were at the baseball banquet last night. What was your impression of being there and your takeaways from just seeing how that went?
I thought it was terrific. I thought Tim Corbin and just, the connectivity that he has with his team and their connection to him, and and to Maggie as well, I mean, it's immediately evident. I thought it was very powerful, and you know, we had a wonderful time. Coach Corbin does a wonderful job with the event, and it was inspiring. And you know, you go through the videos and the recaps and kind of the you know, his talk on each of the players, and it was a wonderful experience. And as I told Tim, I was just proud and honored, you know, to have the baseball banquet as part of my opening weekend, if you will. It was an exciting way to start this role to be able to attend that event.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Malcolm.